Good evening. It is time to call this special August 27th meeting of the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe de Oro CISD to order. Madam Secretary, could you take roll?
Mr. Contreras,
Present.
Mrs. Guanajuato Webb,
Present.
Mr. Mesa,
Here.
Mr. Overfelt,
Present.
Mrs. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Present.
and myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We do have a quorum, and this meeting was duly posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We'll have opening ceremonies with a moment of silence first, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and good evening, and thank you for being at another of our meetings this summer. First item that we have is item 12, Business and Finance. Consideration to approve contract over $5,000 with Tenerosa Ramon, Valverde County Clerk Election Officer, for the amount not to exceed $50,000. Funding source, General Fund, for the tax ratification election. Order to be held Tuesday, November 6, 2018. Kanakani Valdez.
Thank you, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members, good evening. The Valverde County Clerk has served as the Elections Administrator for the 2014, 2016, 2018 Board of Trustee elections and for the 2017 bond election. The fee in this contract is 10%. The fee for the Elections Administrator is 10% of the election expenses. So the contract is for $50,000 or not to exceed $50,000. That includes the equipment, the employees who work the elections. It includes the ballots, and after all of the expenses, then the Elections Administrator bills 10% of those expenses. We have first day of early voting, October 22nd. The 2018 election calendar, it has been set by the Secretary of State, and we do have $25,000 that was included in the 18-19 budget, and we also have additional budget included under commitments.
I believe that appears from page 5 all the way up to, I guess, page 6. It's an insert in the, actually from 5 to 9, and then we have page 6 following 9. But all the information is there. Board members, are there any questions? We have the dates that were important. Again, the deadline for or to order the election was already August the 20th, and the last day for a governing body of a political subdivision to deliver notice of the election is Friday, September 7th, and so we're meeting the deadline, and the first day of early voting will be November 2nd. Election day will be November 6th. Could you, being that there are no questions from the board, could you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the Valverde County Clerk for election administration services and for the board president to sign the contract.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Okay, Mr. Overfeld, is there a second? Ms. Amy Sanders, second. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item that we have is consideration to approve the 2017-2018 final amendment amended budgets for the general operating, debt service, and food service funds. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you, President Mesa. The three executive budgets that the board approves are general fund, debt service, and food service. And prior to the end of the fiscal year, we ask for final amendments, and these amendments are just proposed changes to the functional areas to create an available budget in order to allow for the possibility of any audit reclassifications. I've included the general fund report where you can see there's some functional changes that are recommended. For example, under function 11, that is where the majority of our expenses are. So there could be a possibility where the auditors identify that something that we've classified under function 13, they would recommend that it be classified under function 11. So we look for trends of how reclassifications have happened before and what our spending has been. So we try to line up our budget to where we have available budget for the possibility of any changes during the audit. August 31st is the last day that we can amend, so this meeting is the last day that we can amend the 17-18 budget. It does not change, it does not create any other type of approval. It's simply creating a budget at a functional level so that if there are any changes, we're within our functional levels. And that is a requirement, board requirement that we be within functional, an audit requirement that we be within functional levels. And again, this is our meeting that we have every year. At the end of the year, it's for final amendments.
Yanakani, the final date for the end of the budget year is August 31st.
Yes, sir.
Any questions from board members in regard to item B? Hearing none, then I will hear the recommendation from administration.
Okay. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the 2017-2018 final amended budgets, which include the general fund, debt service fund, and food service fund.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Mr. Smith, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Item C, consideration to approve a resolution to commit the fund balance of the general fund. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you, President Mesa. Committing our fund balance is also a process that we do at year end, where we recommit projects that have not been completed and are still in progress, and where based on our favorability that we're projecting for year end, we then put together another list of projects that we call new commitments or new projects. So our total commitments are $4,216,439. The majority of that is recommitments of projects that we committed in 17-18. So those are already part of our committed fund balance projects, which total $3,134,011. And it is the boiler system at the high school, Del Rio High School renovations, the Del Rio High School restroom renovation, the paving at the stadium, the insurance recovery roofing project. That one is practically at the end. So again, those are funds that we're recommitting till we finalize that project. And from the savings of some of the committed projects, we then created the security door project and the Loeffler Air Force Base landscaping, which includes the canopy and some grass. Our new projects, which the first one we were discussing during the budget process, was to commit $500,000 to health insurance. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Mr. President,
Yes.
since items A through G are items from the previous budget that we're recommitting, can we stop right here and just have discussion, because the next ones are new projects, that way we don't confuse the two?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, board members, if you look at those items at the bottom of page 7,
Middle.
I've got one minor question
The recommitment, I guess. Mr. Smith?
on item E. Can you hear me? All right, I need to get this over. On item E, that
That's,
is this like the last of the deal, or we still got a long way to go on this?
no, it is the
insurance
very end.
roofing?
Good evening. I believe we're at the end of that project right now, but we're still trying to finalize on some last invoices for it. So this could, in fact, be some favorability money in here, but I'm just not comfortable with closing it out right yet.
Okay, that's all I had, yeah.
Thank you.
I have one in regard to item G. I know the canopy was somewhere around $30,000 on the landscaping of Laughlin Air Force Base.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Both of those items are included in there, the canopy as well as some landscaping for out there at the playground area, and they total up just under that 60,000.
Dr. Rios?
He said what I was going to say.
Okay. Are there, I know that it was mentioned, but I'm not sure if it's included in here, the walkways, covered walkways between buildings? Are there any?
Is that at Laughlin?
Yes.
No, sir, that's not included in here at all.
Okay. Are there going to be any covered walkways?
I'm not aware of any requests for that at this time.
Okay. Yes.
Most of the classes at Laughlin are self-contained. So there's very little need to come out other than for lunches. Should that become an issue, it's easier to come serve the students in the classroom. Should it be rain, we're not recommending that expense at this time.
Okay. So it's just the canopy then and the landscaping itself?
For the playground area,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Any other questions from board members? Yes, sir.
Just one clarification. The $175,000 for the security door project, we saw the opportunity to fund that from favorability from the previous year. Therefore, when the board discusses the security projects at the next board meeting, this will give you an additional $175,000 that we don't have to commit from that money, and that y'all may select other security projects. That's why we're including this, because this is a new project that's being implemented with older money.
Okay, I understand. Yes, Mrs. West?
Dr. Rios, the security door projects are for what campuses?
Okay, the first one we're starting with is San Felipe Memorial Middle School, and that's, we say security door, but that's where we turn the doorknobs to be able to have a lockdown from the inside. Mr. Hengig, the scope of the project includes approximately how many doors or how many campuses?
640 classroom doors throughout the district, and it does impact none of our new construction buildings that we put up in the last few years, but everything prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then we'll go on.
And from the favorability that we're projecting for 2017-18, we're projecting $1,082,428. Of that, we had discussed $500,000 for health insurance, and the rest of it are different items that have come up. For the tax ratification election, again, we anticipate that we will have expenses above what we had included in the budget of approximately $40,000, which include information and radio and advertising, and also, again, the total cost for the election. We have to hire a consultant for one of our campuses, which is approximately $20,000. Middle school redesign. This is the separation of the two campuses, so this is starting with some division or construction within the campus. We also are projecting or setting aside some funds for the Val Verde Appraisal District's legal fees. And the remaining favorability is for campus improvements, which we've associated with Lonnie Green's campus, is the bus drop-off pickup area in order to alleviate some of the traffic congestion. And again, the majority of, or the new projects are from favorability, and the majority of the favorability, or 600,000 of that favorability, was from salaries. I have included in here the resolution that has the total of the committed dollars, and I've also included the general fund document, a financial statement, where this is the estimated fund balance that we were working with, 25,763,870 down at the bottom. And so you can see we're based on our forecasted operating budget and our forecasted committed budget against our fund balance. Recommitting these projects, we would have the same estimated fund balance. So again, we're not changing the total fund balance, or not changing the total estimated fund balance, and that's what we're projecting to recommit the old projects and new favorability.
Questions from board members? Ms. Webb?
The only question I have is on item F, the traffic congestion at Lonnie Green. If we are opening up the back section, does that mean the buses are going to come through Mary Lou? Or, because the original construction of that campus was for the buses to come down Cantu and exit through Mary Lou, but that was never done. So if we're looking at adding how are we going to exit?
Obviously, we have to engage some experts on it. Our initial assessment was to have the buses not come through Cantu, but Mary Lou at this time is inaccessible. Therefore, we would want the buses to come in through the neighborhood that's been developed behind the junior college.
Okay.
And not come up through Cantu, which they're currently doing. It is going to put 3-4 blocks more travel, but it's going to avoid a whole lot of time and congestion, and is going to remove some of the congestion.
So are we talking about coming in through the front again, going through the side?
There's a street that makes that goes straight into Lonnie Green. That's your neighborhood, ma'am.
It is. I was going to ask, but I didn't want to interrupt. So I don't remember the street here, but you, Javier, when we lived down that street, I can't remember the name of the street, but, so is that the way you want the buses to come?
Come in and then make a left to go in through, make a left on Cantu to
Right.
come in. The entrance would be developed next to the furthest parking lot at Lonnie Green.
Sorry, Mr. Mess, I do not remember the name of that street.
I think
It's,
I know where you're talking about, but it is going to go through the back of the college then.
Yes,
right.
yes, sir, and not through Cantu, which currently, if anybody's been there at drop-off and pickup time, it's
Right.
probably the most intense. Well, maybe Delaware Middle School might be the most intense, but that's certainly a
Well,
very close second.
we do need a relief route.
So
And,
Thank you.
let me just make sure that I mean, this is just to commit the funds, but you're going to give a final proposal and all that, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. And not to confuse matters more, but we don't believe this is enough money to cover the project. However, Mr. Hengay, through the budget that he presented during the workshop for operations, there have been some money allotted there. We're hoping to have our first operations workshop within the next 30 days. And at that point, make a whole presentation, having engaged some experts to give us a better cost estimate, okay? And having some preliminary discussions with Mr. Chapa, who's been really helpful in the other designs. All this will be of no cost, the initial studies.
Okay.
Mr.
Questions?
Messa?
Yes.
That street
Ms.
is
Santos?
Dove.
Yeah.
It's Dove.
Doug?
Dove.
Okay.
And that's where you're talking about having the buses come out of that street there.
Okay. Dove Street. Well, it sure something needs to happen there because it is very congested. And then going into the high school traffic as well. But hopefully that will come, before us again for the redesign and details in regard to that. Any other questions? Now, Dr. Rios, on the redesign of the middle school, that amount 60,000, will that cover, I guess, changes of the, let's say, intercom system and so forth?
No, sir. The intercom system will remain the same because of the design of the school. This is strictly for subdividing offices and relocating a lab to another space that's adequate. And it also involves our personnel doing 100% of the work. We might have overestimated it a little bit, but because we didn't have the time to do an in-depth study, we did the measuring ourselves and may have overestimated it by $7,000–8,000.
Okay. So currently, we don't have a lab downstairs?
We do, sir. We have a keyboarding lab, but there is a lab between both art rooms that's of the same size. We want to use that lab area for a couple offices, for the parent liaison and the secretary, as well as a small conference space downstairs. And then that keyboarding lab, recreate that lab in a space that's of the same size between both art rooms.
Okay. Okay, just so I can envision the changes.
And if anybody's interested in walking through, Mr. Jimenez and myself have walked it. Be more than happy to walk y'all and share with y'all the vision for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Then I'm fine with that. Could you read the recommendation? I know that.
I did have one.
Oh, Mr. Contreras?
Yes, sir. I know that part of that money is 70,000 or the amount for the appraisal district. By any chance, have we contacted the other entities, see if they're going to come up with their portion, and if they're all on board? Because that way we don't jump on it on our own, fighting this fight.
Dr. Rios?
There has been a conversation between myself and one other commissioner. Now, I know that he doesn't speak for the commissioner's court, but there has been conversations amongst them. And before the board made a final commitment on the money where there was actually a budget amendment, we would have some type of formal agreement in place. This is just simply us informing the board for the potential of $70,000 contribution and knowing that money is set aside should it be needed. We still have to hear from the appraisal district as a strategy and process. We've only heard about the potential amount of money.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Overfelt? Did you? Okay. Then would you go ahead and read the recommendation?
Sir. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution committing the fund balance of the General Operation Fund.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation from administration. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Mrs. Webb, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Contreras, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Next item that we have on our agenda is again consideration to approve general fund budget amendments for the 2018-2019 commitments from fund balance. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you, President Mesa. The final step for committing fund balance would be to amend the budget, amend the general fund budget by functional area. So as you can see, the financial statement included is based on the 18-19 budget, where the proposed changes column includes the $4,216,439 at a functional level in order for those projects that we've committed to be budgeted.
And you can see that on page 10. Well, actually,
It's right after page 10. It's an
it's
attachment.
not numbered,
Right.
but it's the one just before 11. If there's any questions from board members, Mrs. Webb?
Yes, I noticed that on the proposed budget, the budget that we approved last week, we
Mhm.
had line item 5719 under tax collection P&I. And on the one we're presenting right now, we have combined line item 5710, which is tax collections, with line item 5719. Is there a reason why we combined those two when it was presented separate at our last meeting?
When we presented the interactive budget workbook, I was including the 5710 as just our tax collections, and 5719 are our delinquent tax collections. 5710 is the field that we were calculating, and that's the field that we were using to calculate the change in the tax rate. But when we present our financials, we just present them all as one field. But on our interactive workbook, because we were projecting the different tax rates on there, I had it separated out.
And then if we go further down to the functional area, we have a maintenance and operations under the proposed changes of over 3 million, plus what we approved on function 71, debt service. We approved the debt service, and we also approved an INS debt service at the last meeting for over 4,114,264. And on here, they're combined again under the function 71. Is there a reason for combining them here?
It was one function, but at
71.
Function 71,
Yes,
it was one function, but at the last meeting, in order to show that we were paying our debt in 18-19 from general fund and from debt service, I was just showing where the total payment added up within function 71, plus there's other function 71 expenses. But in total, they're all under function 71. I was just trying to do trying to make it as transparent as possible on the presentation.
Okay, because the total budget that was approved last week was 93,036,960, and right now we have an amended budget of over 97 million.
That's the 4 million that we're committing. The 93 million plus the 4 million of committed would put us at 97 million.
And the 4 million that we're committing is at the INS?
No, the 4 million that we're committing is the agenda item that we just approved, which was the list of projects that was included in this memo, where we were recommitting projects of $3,134,011, and from the 17-18 favorability, new projects of $1,082,428. So the projects that we just committed in the previous agenda item, we are now adding them to the 18-19 budget at a functional level.
Mr. Rosa, if I may?
Yes, Dr. Rios.
Because the board intended to have the TRE election, the debt service was already part of the budget. And so item 71 that you're referring to, that's been part of the budget for, or at least the budget that we proposed for this coming year.
According to the Attorney General's office, taxing entities cannot use M&O funds to pay debt. And I have a statement here that says proceeds of the M&O tax may be used to fund, which would be your operating expenses, administrative, but it cannot be used for construction, nor can it be used to pay debt. So I don't understand. I'm missing something somewhere.
We spoke the other day, Ms. Webb, and I asked if you could share that document with me so
I
I
didn't
could
have
read
it at that time. I didn't know where I had seen it. But you told me that you had spoken to someone, I don't know who, who that was.
We used Moat Casey as our consultant when they provided the guidance for the tax ratification election. And Moat Casey are the top school finance gurus in the state of Texas. And they do help Congress also write the laws.
Okay.
And our maintenance and operations does include construction. All of the construction that we have done has been under maintenance and operation budget or general fund. And debt service can be paid, and that's where, when you mentioned that to me, I asked if you could bring
Yeah,
that
well, I
document.
didn't, as a matter of fact, I just found this particular one that states, districts do not have authority to increase the maintenance and operations tax rate to create a surplus to pay debt service with maintenance and operations tax revenue. And it mentions Texas State Code 26.012, 012.
And that document is an opinion from the Attorney General. That document, I read it, refers to the fact that districts do not have the authority to increase their maintenance and operation tax rate without voter approval, and it references the rollback tax rate. That's what the tax ratification election process is.
Can I see that, just to make sure it's the same document we
It's,
reviewed before?
It was in July 2017. I saw the same thing. It's an opinion by Mr. But it didn't, how come, well, it doesn't mention that.
It's the same one, Mr. Mesa, and if the board wishes, I can engage Mr. Schulman so that he can write a communique to the board, a legal communique, but this has been vetted out. So we have 100% confidence that the opinions that we've gotten address this. I can have Mr. Schulman put it in writing if it'll make the board members feel better, but this is a process that's been used across the state and it's been vetted by numerous attorneys. We've had these conversations and are 100% sure, not 99.9, 100% sure that the TREs are legal. But if you'd like, I can certainly have Bob Schulman write an opinion for you all.
I understand it. Basically, what we're doing is, again, holding a ratification election so that we can change that and be able to commingle those two funds. But, Mrs. Webb, would you want a statement from our attorney?
I think yes.
Then we'll go ahead and do that. Just to make
Because-
sure, so every board member can understand that it is legal to do that, but we do have to hold an election. This is why we're changing this. We're going for the election, of course. It's not a done deal yet.
Thank you.
So if we can proceed with that, Dr. Rios, just to make sure that,
Yes, sir. Now, in summary, she also has highlighted, if I may read,
sure.
Tax Code subsection 26.08A prohibits a school district from adopting a tax rate that exceeds a rollback tax rate for a district unless the adopted rate is approved by the district's registered voters in an election held for that purpose. But absolutely, I'll have Bob write a letter for y'all and include it in the board update as soon as he completes it, and I'll make sure he expedites it.
Okay, appreciate it. Any other questions from administration? Mr. Contreras?
Mr. Mesa, no, I understand the apprehensiveness of Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Webb, and I think that'd be best if we can have some assurance, from legal counsel that it is legal and it's okay to use. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that everybody's is good with it, before we hit into it.
Sure. Okay, then we will contact legal counsel to provide a letter to each board member and making sure that this is, again, allowed, and it will be given to every board member. Okay. Then,
Could you, excuse me,
Ms. Gonzalez?
could you also ask about the INS? If we can, do we have to go to voter approval after this passes, do we have to ask for voter approval? Can we do it ourselves, the board?
What is the
INS,
question?
As far as INS, raising it.
The question is, if I may, Pam? Yeah?
Please.
Okay, the question is, once the voters approve the TRE and the debt service is paid from the operations fund, the the INS tax rate is still effective because the voters have approved it. So the question is, can the board on their own go back and increase the INS from a zero tax rate all the way up to what the voters previously had approved? So, and the answer is yes. We've researched that already. The answer is yes. But again, that's why it's important that the board members be on board and guarantee to the taxpayers that, you know, there won't be an increase. That's why we're doing it the other way. But I'll certainly have a.
Approval. I'm saying we don't
No,
need
ma'am,
voter approval. We can just do
you
it.
have already gotten that.
No, I mean, but to raise it.
You-
We don't need it.
No, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted, because there was some also question about that we would have to go before the voters again to raise it.
No, ma'am, you would not.
Okay, that's another
So,
clarification I would appreciate.
Sure.
If Mr. Schulman can also,
Yes.
make sure that that's cleared, so that each board member can understand 100% before we go into the election.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Then, Yanagani, would you read the recommendation again for the commitment from fund balance?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the general fund budget amendment for 2018-2019 commitments from fund balance.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Mr. Contreras, is there a second? Mr. Smith, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Oh, with 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and all those against? One voted against. Oh, I thought you had voted.
I did vote.
4?
Yeah, whether, yes.
Yes?
Mhm.
Okay, then we have 6 in favor and 1 against. Ms. Webb. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now down to item 13, Human Resources. Consideration to approve the updated district compensation plans. Aide Garcia.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. In your packet, we included an update to the 2017-2018 compensation plan, and this was to include a dual credit stipend for summer classes. This increase became necessary because a dual credit teacher was hired to provide dual credit classes during the summer. We also included updates to the 2018-2019 compensation plan, and all of those were listed in the agenda as well as board communique. There was a few changes that I would like to go over with you, and this is basically to align the job descriptions that we brought to you for approval that had not been updated to the compensation pay plan, and I'll go through those individually. The first one is on administrative professional pay plan, and this is for pay grade 3. The interventionist / it should also read master reading teacher. In the following page, under pay grade 6, also under the administrative professional plan, we're deleting the position of Director for Curriculum and Instruction.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
I got 3 packages.
Oh, you got
So,
3?
Can you give me?
The red line.
I'm not
and-
following where you're at. So
Okay.
no big deal.
And the packet that Monica Villarreal just provided, in the first one, it should be red line items.
Here?
No, in the manila folder.
Here. Red line items. So I got 2 in this packet.
This is, we're going over this right there. So we added language to that one, and that's why we're striking right here. That one will be next.
Okay, so
The teacher one is right back here, the one she just mentioned.
So the second page where it says Administrative Professional Pay Plan, the title on the top, under pay grade 3, we just revised the title to match with the job description that we brought in the summer. to read interventionist / master reading teacher.
Okay, got it.
Got it. Then the next page, under pay grade 6, we deleted the position for Director of Curriculum and Instruction. The next page for paraprofessionals, pay grade 1 to 3, there was no changes. The next page, I'm sorry, on that pay grade 3, right. So that on pay grade 4 through 5, we have HR assistant. That job title was changed during the summer to read Human Resource Specialist. We deleted the title of Secretary HR LOA. And on pay grade 5, we changed the title from Clerk Accounting to Accounts Payable Activity Funds. On paraprofessional pay plan for pay grade 6, the title that was on there was Communication and Multimedia Specialist. The job description approved by the board was Multimedia Technician. Now we go to the auxiliary pay plan under pay grade 2. This job description was approved from textbook clerk to textbook safety assistant worker. There was no changes on auxiliary pay plan 5 through 8. Then we go to teacher stipends. On the bottom where it's the sign-in bonus, the state does not offer the science composite anymore, so we're offering a sign-in bonus for personnel that hold a science 7 through 12 certification and math also 7 through 12. Those were the additional changes that we added from the board communique that was sent to you. Is there any questions?
Question from board members? Yes, Mr. Overfeld?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. I've got some, and it's also about stuff that's probably buried or in here a little bit further on that we haven't discussed. But the summer dual credit after school, that you said that was during the summer,
Right.
there because the school district hired someone to do that. So we had someone we paid.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I just wanted to make, because I taught some ECHS classes this summer through SWTJC, and I wanted to be on the record that that is not me there.
But we're not paying you anything, sir.
Yeah. No. And I don't want a conflict of interest said or anything like that. So that was somebody else in the district teaching other.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I have some others for when we get further down in there for the supplemental.
Okay, then we'll go to supplemental now.
On the supplemental stipends, there was an additional corrections from what we sent it in the board packet. But if you have any questions from what was in the board packet, we'll go ahead and entertain them at this time. Unless you want me to read each one of them, it's up to you.
Well, there's not that many. I mean, could you go ahead and?
Sure, absolutely. For the supplemental stipends, we included the lead librarian increased from 3,000 to 3,300.
Please explain the rationale so they know that we didn't just do it out of a request or anything, but like, for example, the lead librarian and the lead PE teacher, that was coincided with the lead nurse, so that everybody that's a lead gets the same stipend.
Right. So we only had the lead nurse at 3,300, so we also increased the lead librarian and the lead PE teacher to be at the same level. We deleted the longevity stipend since we increased the maximum rate on the pay plan, so that was deleted. There'll be no longevity stipend. The welding head coach. There was an update from 6,930 to 8,730. And this was requested and evaluated, where it was requested from the CTE director and brought to cabinet for approval.
And the purpose for that was just to have all head coaches. If you notice the other head coaches in the other areas, that's the same stipend that they're making the robotics program head coaches at 8730.
So the rationale, I guess, for all these changes so far that we've seen is to make it equal to the others and have the same responsibilities.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mesa and
Question.
Dr. Rios, I do have, and before we get too far ahead, in the department for the band and music, I don't see the stipend, or if they even for the theater arts or musical director in here. She is a director, or that person is a director, yet I see everybody else. However, I don't see.
Yes, sir. There are some stipends that are paid at the end of the year, and that's one of them. That individual in that position holds 2 stipends. One of them is for the UIL competition, and the other one is for the extra work that's done in creating productions just for people to come and observe. Now, because I would ask today, what I intended, what we discussed at cabinet is that we would share with y'all what that stipend included and via an update. We believe it's equal to other stipends that are done, but we can evaluate that again. I just want to let y'all know that there is a stipend. There's really 2 stipends for it, and that coincides with other similar stipends, but we'll provide that in an update. The board can always come back and adjust stipends.
And that's fine, it's just I didn't see it here.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, there's a handful that aren't in here, like the UIL coaches, academic competitions, because they get paid by the amount of work that's done.
Mr. Contreras, I have brought that up to the attention of our superintendent as well.
Right.
But we can always look at it again. Okay. Go on to the next one.
The next change, for the elementary school e-cadet competition, we're adding 8 to include Laughlin. And they also have the option to have 1 representative or 2 and divide the stipend by 2. The next page, for Del Rio High School, we included Bell's head sponsor because we only had Bell sponsor. So this is defining that it's for the head sponsor. The stipend remains the same. We included a Bell's co-sponsor for $3,210, as well as a dance company for $3,210. Those are all on that page. The following page, we have freshmen. Freshmen now has their own cheerleading squad. So we have a freshman cheer sponsor for $4,815. Middle school, they requested for the cheerleader sponsor to have the option to either have 1 sponsor for $4,815 or divide it by 2 for the amount of $2,407.50. We realized that the pom-pom squad sponsor had not been updated. It was at $1,500. So we also made that to be equivalent to the cheerleader sponsor at Del Rio Middle School. And they also have an option to have either 1 sponsor or 2. Next page. Like Mr. Mesa mentioned earlier, we changed some of these figures to be aligned with the rest of the coaches. So we have under cross-country assistant middle school from $2,500 to $3,210. Cross-country middle school, also $3,210. The powerlifting assistant, $3,210. the tennis assistant at high school from 3,638 to 7,276 because they work all year. They have 2 seasons. Yes, sir.
On this same issue, there was a tennis and a golf that half a season where and yet they were being compensated at the same level. That we did that correction and then increased, like you just did on tennis, since they both seasons, to bring them up to par on there? Because there was a discrepancy, or there was a difference if there was 2 seasons to the sport. You know, and then if one of them, as an assistant, was being paid less. Tennis and golf assistants were there. I believe the amount was $1,400. It's not on here because it didn't correct.
Golf assistant, right there. Golf assistant, spring only?
Yeah. So did we bring them up correctly,
Yes.
just like we did with tennis? And if they were the assistant for both seasons, we gave them a little bit extra to compensate?
We do, I mean, we have it here at 3,788, but it should have been, we have it there, right? No. Yeah, we can calculate it so that it can be updated before we update it.
Is that a 2-season?
Yes, tennis and golf were 2 seasons. However, the assistants, if they only had 1 season, weren't being compensated as an assistant.
Okay.
So I brought it up during one of the budget sessions to be treated equally, you know. And if they worked both seasons, then be compensated extra for working both seasons.
So is that going to be researched?
Well, this is doing it right now, so we can go ahead and then I think we're gonna label like spring and then the fall like that. If they do the 2 seasons, that will be compensated, like you were mentioning. Okay.
When we did address that, Mr. Contreras, and at the time, the golf assistant was only doing the spring, at least one of the assistants. So if you look at the golf assistant spring only, that stipend will mathematically, it should equal out to a little bit more than the coaches that do both sports in swim or in tennis. The one that I have to recall is on the golf assistant, the one that's just plain assistant, because that amount is lower than the tennis assistant. But I wish Rick Smith was here because I remember that was a discussion we engaged in, and that was a decision that was made to have that assistant coach less than the tennis coach. There's something that wasn't happening. I think that the first season of golf is kind of like half a season, whereas tennis is just 2 full seasons. That's what I remember the conversation being, and that's why it would have been 3/4 of that amount instead of the full amount. As a matter of fact, that's the conversation we had now that I think about it. That's why that stipend is 3/4 of what the tennis one would be. Tennis has 2 full seasons. Golf, the first season wasn't as intense. Okay. But we will, again, we'll clarify that and we'll put that in a board update, but I'm pretty sure that's the conversation we had, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we can go on.
So we're at tennis assistant, the tennis middle school, the fall and the spring. So that would be 7,276. And then track middle school, 3,210. And the volleyball middle school, 3,210. Again, so all those can align. And then on the following page, there was no revisions. On the substitute pay scale, for paraprofessional, we're including retired paraprofessionals substituting within their previous employment pay grade or higher would be at 70% of their daily rate at retirement.
I'm glad to see that in place. Ms.
I
Gonzalez?
just wanted to ask for the reasoning or explanation.
Be-
More,
Sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry, ma'am. fortunately for us, there are some substitutes that, that have those skills required to do the job and come in and do purchase orders and just everything else that we require. However, if we don't compensate them adequately, they make more money substituting as classroom teachers. And it's difficult to pull them from that because it is more money. They have a certain skill set that costs money, unless we're okay not having them. But I'd much rather have that skill set come in, especially when we need that long-term assistance.
No, I'm all for it. I'm just looking at their hourly when they retired or whatever, how much they make. It's sad. But yeah, starting from $16.93 all the way up to $27.08 an hour. So, no, I'm definitely thinking it's a good idea. Just wanted to know, because I know several secretaries that are doing it long-term, retired secretaries. Yeah, I believe we need to compensate them better. Very good.
And again, I'm glad administration is doing that because with somebody that has the experience, there are no gaps, and the continuity is there in regard to, especially when you have a deadline to submit paperwork to federal and other agencies that do have a timeline. So thanks. Does that include everything?
Yes, any other questions?
Okay. Then what is the recommendation from administration?
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the updates to the 2017, 2018, and the 2018, 2019 district compensation plans as presented.
Okay, you have heard the recommendation, and I do want to, again, make sure that the board members get the information on the update on those that were questioned. So, Dr. Lee, you will provide that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mrs. Webb, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries with 6. And is there one abstention or against? Against. Okay. 6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you.
Motion carries. The time is 6:57 p.m. We're now going to closed session. That session will be held on any or all subjects and purposes permitted by sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.084, and 551.087 of the Texas Open Meetings Act. If a final vote is required on any matter considered in closed session, it shall be done in open session. We're now in closed session. Okay, the time is 7:53 p.m. We are now reconvening into open session. No action was taken in executive session. We're down to item 16A. Consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations, and reassignments. Aide Garcia.
Good evening again. It is the recommendation of administration to approve the following new hires: Whitney Block, first grade teacher for Buena Vista Elementary; Cameron Ford, third grade teacher for Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary; Angelica Santos, Spanish teacher for Del Rio Middle School; and Campbell Ochoa, science teacher for Del Rio High School.
You have heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There being no other items on the agenda, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Mrs. Sanders, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good night.